I still wake up screaming some nights, drenched in cold sweat. The memories of Hawkins High School clawing at my mind. My therapist says writing it all down might help, so here goes. My name is Ethan Carter, and this is how I survived a school filled with monsters. From day one, something felt wrong. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and every instinct screams at you to run? That's what it was like stepping through those iron gates. Their Gothic spires reached toward a perpetually gray sky, and the stone building loomed before us, its windows like dead eyes staring down at fresh prey. My best friend, Jacob Lee, was the first to put it into words. During orientation, we were sitting in the back of the auditorium, watching our new headmaster drone on about excellence and tradition, while shadows seemed to dance at the corners of our vision. "Feels like a murderer is here," Jacob whispered, fidgeting with the sleeve of his blazer. "Like in Friday the 13th, you know. When someone died and haunted the grounds." I forced a laugh, but it came out hollow. "Come on, man. Don't be dramatic. If only it had been something as simple as a ghost." The first few weeks were deceptively normal, aside from the occasional cold spot or mysterious scratching sound in the walls. Then, Marcus Reeves disappeared. Just vanished between third and fourth period. The teachers acted like he'd never existed. A week later, it was Tommy Wu, then Sarah Collins from the administrative office. That's when they gave us the rules. Every student received a typed sheet of paper. The edges were slightly singed, as if it had been pulled from a fire. The administration called them safety guidelines, but we knew better. These weren't guidelines, they were survival instructions. Rule 1, if you see a custodian with the name tag Bob, do not interact with him. He might try to speak to you, but ignore him. We have never had a staff member named Bob. Rule 2, never look at the riverbank between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. You won't die, but you'll wish you had. Rule 3, if you open your locker and see a decapitated head, shut the locker and go to class. Do not touch the head or anything inside. Rule 4, do not open the doors at the end of the lunchroom. Rule 5, if you see someone without a head, turn around and blink. It will revert to normal. Do not stare. Rule 6, when lights flicker, hide under a table until they return to normal. This rule is critical. Rule 7, the third floor has 2 sets of stairs. Always take the left stairs. The right stairs lead to the 4th floor. No one returns from the 4th floor. Rule 8, if you see drunken figures near the forest, do not acknowledge them. Running only makes it worse. I was a skeptic back then. Didn't believe in ghosts or monsters or things that go bump in the night. That changed the day I opened my locker and found myself staring into the glazed eyes of what used to be my chemistry teacher's head. The urge to touch it was overwhelming, like an itch you can't scratch. My hand moved on its own, reaching toward those dead eyes, but something made me stop. I slammed the locker shut and ran to class, my heart thundering against my ribs. That same day, the PA system crackled to life with an announcement that still haunts my dreams. Students of Hawkins High School, there has been an emergency. Rule 8 has been broken. The student interacted with the figures and faced a fate worse than death. We started the semester with 50 students. By Thanksgiving, only 13 of us remained. I kept a secret tally in my notebook, tracking which rules claimed which lives. Rule 1, 7 deaths. No survivors. Their bodies were found twisted into impossible shapes, skin bleached white as paper. Rule 2, 3 deaths, for survivors. The survivors never spoke again. Their voices were stolen by whatever they saw at the riverbank. Rule 3, 1 Death. Poor Jessica couldn't resist touching the head. They found her own head in someone else's locker the next day. Rule 4, 3 Deaths, 3 Survivors. The survivors babbled about an endless cafeteria filled with tables set for the dead. Rule 5, 8 Deaths. 6 Survivors. The headless ones took them. Rule 6, 5 Deaths, 1 Survivor. The things that came in the darkness. Rule 7, 3 students missing, presumed trapped on the 4th floor. Rule 8, 7 Deaths, 2 Survivors. Both survivors were so mutilated they'll spend their lives in intensive care. I broke Rule 6 once, just once. The light started flickering during my trip to the principal's office, and I couldn't reach a table in time. What I saw. Imagine pitch-black entities with claws longer than your arm, mouths filled with rows upon rows of needle-sharp teeth. They moved like smoke given form, flowing down from the ceiling with hungry shrieks that made my bones vibrate. My friend Jacob broke Rule 2, and whatever he saw by the riverbank broke him. When I asked him about it, his face went chalk white. He tried to speak but could only manage broken sobs. Our English teacher, Mr. Peterson, comforted him while shooting daggers at me with his eyes. That's how I ended up in the principal's office, where I had my first encounter with Bob, the custodian. He seemed normal enough at first, just a guy in overalls pushing a mop. "Hey, do you know where the 3rd floor is?" he asked, his voice slightly too deep to be human. I remembered Rule 1 and kept walking, but I heard him changing behind me. The wet slap of the mop became something else, something organic and wrong. The principal gave me a note that day. "Meet me here at midnight sharp, no earlier, no later. When your phone vibrates, yell, 'I'm here.' That's how I'll know it's you." When I returned to class, 2 more students were missing. Jacob sat at his desk, a massive claw mark running from his chest to his arm, blood soaking through his white shirt. Mr. Peterson started to yell at me to leave. But then he saw Bob materializing in the corner. The teacher's last words were cut short as the thing wearing Bob's skin gutted him like a fish. That night, I met the principal as instructed. He had me turn around, warning me not to scream. What I saw. God, how do I describe it? For legs bent at impossible angles, a head stretched vertically like taffy, for eyes arranged in pairs at the top and bottom, a mouth full of hundreds of needle-sharp teeth, dripping some kind of black ichor as it fed on. I can't. I just can't. I passed out when I came to in the principal's office hours later. I knew I had to escape. Jacob felt the same way. We made plans to meet at midnight the next night. The escape itself was almost easy, in a way. Most of the rules didn't apply when you were leaving. Couldn't break Rule 2 if you weren't looking at the riverbank. Couldn't break Rule 3 if you weren't checking your locker. But Bob was waiting. He stood there with his mop, asking if he should call security. I made the mistake of looking at his face as I ran past. His transformation was like watching a time-lapse of decay in reverse. His body elongated, fingers extending into foot-long claws. His face. Jesus, his face, but he hit his head on the doorframe as he chased us, buying us precious seconds. Jacob and I made it to the fence. 20 feet of chain link stood between us and freedom. We had brought shovels. Thank God for that. For 2 hours, we dug in silence, jumping at every sound from the school behind us. The hole had to be perfect, 2 feet wide, 10 feet deep. Any smaller, and we'd get stuck; any larger, and we'd never finish in time, as the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of blood and bruise. We crawled through our escape tunnel. The world outside looked different, more vivid, more real. Or maybe we were the ones who had changed. Jacob and I ran until our lungs burned, not stopping until the school disappeared behind us. We survived. But survival comes with a price. Jacob never spoke above a whisper again. I can't sleep without lights on. We both flinch at the sound of a mop bucket's wheels or the flicker of fluorescent lights. Sometimes, I drive past Hawkins High School. It looks normal now, just another brick building full of students. But I know better. I know what lives in those halls, what waits in the shadows between classes. And every time I pass, I swear I see Bob standing at a window, mop in hand, watching me with a smile that's just a little too wide to be human. I survived the school of monsters, but a part of me never left those haunted halls. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if the monsters followed us home. 10 years have passed since Jacob and I escaped Hawkins High School for boys. Life moved on, as it always does, but some things never truly let you go. Yesterday, I received a letter. It was from Hawkins. Just a note, typed on old paper, that said, "The rules are spreading. And this time, they're coming to you." I don't know what that means, but I'm not waiting to find out. The rules didn't just stay at Hawkins. They've found their way to other schools, other towns, and soon they'll find their way to me. We can't run anymore, the monsters are coming.